Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Are you ready for some morning medicine? Are you ready for your morning medicine? Today's prescription comes from Proverbs chapter 7, verse 22. Y'all see the last day of my mask, my fish tank back there, a little bit loud. But hey, man, I don't know about y'all, but we're finna get this medicine. Proverbs chapter 7, verse 22 says, "He follows her impulsively, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer bounding toward a trap." Follows her impulsively, like an ox going to slaughter and a deer bounding for a trap. I want you to think about that for this morning medicine. The key word I want us to focus on is impulsively. Impulsively. I want us to think about impulse living. The things that we tend to do impulsively. Notice what carries after that. Like an ox going to slaughter, like a deer bounding for a trap. I want you to think in your mind that when we act or move impulsively, it's like an ox going to slaughter and a deer headed for a trap. I want us to think in those terms so we can see the destructiveness of impulse living, which we've got accustomed in some areas to live. Impulse living. Why in the world is impulse living dangerous? Just think about this, because some of us are impulse shoppers. And just think about how that impulse shopping and some of the predicaments is put you in. That when you go out there and you go to a store and you pass by something and you see it, and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to have it. I got to get that. I have to get it. And rather be some of us can't go pass by a car shop without wanting to get a new car. And there we go. A couple of weeks later, we got us a new car. Impulse. And we find out how that puts us in a spending bind. Because at that moment, that thing just mesmerized me. It glamored me with its appeal. And I just have to have it. I got to get it. Some of us have been like that when we see things. And because we're in awe of that glamour, in awe of that person, we impulsively do things that we should not be doing. But because I get caught up in the moment, there I go down a road that only leads me towards slaughter. It's only setting me for a trap. And this, for this morning medicine, I want us to really focus on, because the enemy wants us to have that way of thinking, to continue to live impulsively. Some of us get caught up in the moment, and there we go, saying things, doing things. Our attitude, that thing, some rises up in us, and impulsively we go off. And when we go off, we really go off. Because we get caught up in the moment. And God is trying to help us with this getting caught up in the moment. Because it only leads us towards slaughter or being bound in a trap. It will always cost us in the end, because impulsive living is not the way God is calling us to live. Why did this happen if we know in itself that it's like an ox going to the slaughter? or if I'm headed for a trap? Why do I find myself impulsively living? And I want to identify 3 things this morning to help you with this. 3 things this morning to help us with this impulsive living. 3 things for our morning medicine. Why do we live like that? Why? Oftentimes, impulse living, number 1, identifies something that God has already been communicating with us, and we fail to deal with it. The reason why impulse living has such an impact is because oftentimes it's something God has been wanting to address, but we have failed to allow him to address it. God has spoken to us about our spending problems. God has communicated with us that we have issues in these certain areas. And because we haven't allowed God to deal with them, we still move by them. They are still the monster in our closet that still eats us alive. Because oftentimes they are issues that have become bigger issues because we never dealt with the issue. That's how we start living impulsively by it. Because it's never really truly been addressed. And now that thing is out of control. Number 2, why in the world is impulse living? Why do we live by it? That's an area that we're weak in. Impulse living, when we find ourselves moving impulsively, it is showing us an area that we are weak. That's why we move impulsively. We oftentimes tell ourselves, man, you know what? I just don't be thinking. No, no, we do. We do think. It's just that we're so weak in that area, we don't give it much thought. We just give in. That's why you don't recognize that you actually think. Because you're so weak, you just give in so quick. It's as if you weren't even thinking, but you were. It's just you didn't give it much thought. Impulse living shows us areas that we are really, really weak in. When you find yourself spending like you do, you're weak in that area. That's really an issue. And it's only showing that you're not strong. That's why you keep giving in impulsively. When you find yourself in certain situations and you impulsively respond out of your anger, that shows you that's an area that you're weak in. And that situation just showing you or highlighting for us just how weak we are. When we find ourselves, and you know what, man, I'm trying to battle with this lust. And every time I find myself in this place, around this person, or XYZ, ABC, it shows you how weak you are. The reason why we get caught up in the moment is because you're weak. We are weak in that area. So the moment we become a slave to it. That's why you don't think. Or we don't give it much thought. Because we have no strength. And that's the danger about living impulsively. Is because when you're weak in an area, there's no telling what you'll do. Because something else is driving you. You're a slave to something. And because you're a slave to it, you're not strong enough to resist it. Hence, why you find yourself in that area impulsively doing things, knowing, watch this, understanding that I shouldn't be doing this, yet you keep doing it. It's an area that has been identified. You're weak. You're weak. Number 3, why in the world is impulse living? Why is that such an issue? And number 3, I'm just going to say it like this. The reason why it's an issue is because it works against you. The reason why it's an issue is because impulse living works against you. It's not good to live impulsively. It's not good to live in that manner. And the thing about it is that the enemy loves for us to live like that. Because it can never work out for our good. It works against you. It doesn't move you forward. It actually moves you backwards. And I just want us to put that up on our minds today. Because the Bible says that impulse living is like an ox going to the slaughter. Listen to that. Ox going to the slaughter. Ox going to the slaughter. And a deer bounding toward a trap. Why would we want to trap ourselves? And the thing about a trap is, what is it trapping me for? That's what I want you to think about. That's the scary part. Don't applaud impulse living. When you find yourself losing control, that's not a good thing. It's actually a destructive thing. When you find yourself continually get caught up in the moment, that's a warning sign. That's a red flag. Because it's showing, identifying an area that God says, man, I've been telling you about this. This is a problem. Number 2, it's showing how weak we truly are. And number 3, it's working against you for something much more that'll cost you. God help us, because it's impulse living. It is not for me. It is definitely against me. So I just want to put these things in your mind when you find yourself in this place. Cry out to God. It's an area that God is trying to show, and you're seeing how weak you are. And you have an understanding that it's not working for you. And how about we turn to the one who works for us? Because I don't want you to get caught up so much in the moment that it end up costing you life. Impulse living can only bring you death. It can never bring you life. So why get caught up in it? This is more than medicine. We're trying to change that type of living, because living by the impulse will impulsively put you to death. God bless you all. This is more than medicine.